the Bulls and the Warriors, right? It's always been um there's always been a lot of talk about who the best team is in NBA history. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I did a video where Draymond Green was talking about LeBron being the GOAT. And he said something that kind of struck me odd when he said that LeBron beat the greatest team ever assembled. And the reason why he said that is because the Golden State Warriors won 73 games, which is the record. The Bulls won 72. Golden State broke the record and won 73. So 73-9. So he's saying that's the greatest team ever assembled based on the regular season record. Right? Now, if you want to be practical about it, the greatest teams ever, like it's been 76 champions in the NBA. So if you take all 76 of those champions, all 76 of those teams will be ahead of the 73-9 Warriors because the best teams win. So you don't get to carry that title of the greatest team ever assembled. You can carry that title of the greatest record, the best regular season record. You could say you can even go as far as say the greatest regular season team ever assembled. I wouldn't even use those words, ever assembled, because if I wanted to put together a team that's the best team, I can assemble something better than that already exists. I think the Bulls team was assembled better. That was a better assembled team than the Steph Curry led Warriors that won 73 games, right? I really do think the Bulls are better, and I think there's a couple of other teams that are better as well. But I just stay with the modern era. I won't go far back, with some of those Lakers and Celtics squads, right? Because they both were stacked. Lakers and Celtics were stacked, right? So, but that's my whole thing. You can't be a better team than the team that won it. Like, it's 76 champions, you not one of them. So you can't be the best team ever assembled, because the ultimate test is the playoffs. That's the greatest test in the grind is the playoffs. You're playing one team 7 times at the most, 4 times at the least. And then you're doing that first round, second round, conference finals. You're doing that for 4 rounds and, at the least 16 games. Right? Or unless you was in the era where you only had to win 3 games in the first round. So 15 or 16 games at least, you got to grind through and stand that test of time. Right? The greatest team can stand that test of time. The Warriors didn't. Right? And if you're even thinking about it, the Warriors lost 9 games in the playoffs. That's how many games they lost in the regular season. They lost 9 games in the playoffs. They I want to say they lost 1 in the first round, 1 in the second round, and then they went down 3-1 to OKC in the conference finals. So that's 3, 4, 5. That's 5. That's 5. They lost 5 games before they got to the finals. They had to come back from a 3-1 deficit. They get to the finals and they blow a 3-1 lead. So that's 4 more. That's 9. Yeah. So they lost 4 in the finals, 3 in the conference finals, 1 in the second round, 1 in the first round. They lost 9 games in the playoffs. So if you take your record from the regular season, yeah, you broke the record. You was the greatest regular season team record wise. But then you got in the playoffs, and if you want to talk about the teams that the greatest playoffs, yeah, when you see this list, you go see this 2016-17 Warriors. That's the Kevin Durant-led Warriors, not the Steph Curry-led Warriors. That's the Kevin Durant-led Warriors. They went 16-1. They lost that 1 game to the Cavs, which was a heavily officiated game where the Cavs shot so many free throws in the first quarter. It was almost like they wanted to give them that game. So they could have pulled off an undefeated in the playoffs that year. But we're talking about the 7-3-9 team, which was 2015-16. They lost 9 games. It was 12-9, I think. something like that, 12-9. So no, they're not quite the best team ever assembled. But if you look at that Lakers team, 2000, 2001, they went 15-1 in the playoffs. And the reason why they didn't go 16-1 because that was the year that 3 games get you out of the first round. That was the year they went undefeated all throughout the playoffs. They got to the finals and they lost game 1 to the Sixers and Allen Iverson. That was a shocker. They almost went undefeated as well. And then you scroll down and you see a 90-91 Bulls team that went 15-2, and then you scroll down some more and you see the 95-96 Bulls that won 72 games and only lost 3 games in the playoffs. They lost 2 to the Sonics in the finals. They swept whoever they played in the first round. They lost 1 game in the conference finals. So they swept first round, swept second round, lost 1 game in the conference finals, lost 2 games in the finals to the Supersonics. So if you put that body of work together and you see the Bulls won 72 games in the regular season, lost 10. And then they go through the playoffs and win 15, lose 3, right? So they only lost 13 games the entire season, plus got the championship. Or the Golden State Warriors lost 18 games and didn't get the championship. Then you look at the roster and you see 6'6" point guard Ron Harper, great defender. 6'6" shooting guard Michael Jordan, great defender. 6'7" small forward Scottie Pippen, great defender. 6'7" or 6'8" power forward Dennis Rodman, great defender. And you round it off with Luke Longley with Tony Kukoc coming off the bench. And then you go look at what the Warriors had with Steph, Clay, Dre, Iguodala, Bogut. I'm going with the Bulls. And plus they got the GOAT. I'm going with the Bulls. The Bulls is the greatest team in modern history. Maybe the Lakers, but not the Warriors. Not the Warriors, in my humble opinion, at all. Right? So they got to take a back seat to a couple of teams if you want to be real about it. But I mean, as a matter of fact, listen to this.
Golden State Warriors were in the era of the Chicago Bulls. They would just reconstruct their big guys. They would have a guy like Rick Mahorn on their team, and then they would be able to play that way. But if you put Rick Mahorn in this era, he wouldn't be able to guard Draymond Green because he wouldn't be able to come out and guard him. But in that era, they would just have to change personnel slightly and then still be as good. If you add guys like, no disrespect, but if you add guys like, if you give Steph Curry and Klay Thompson the same big men that Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars had, they could do the same thing in that era. But they would need James Edwards. So you would just change the personnel. It wouldn't change the way they win.
You missed one point. The defense was, constructed a little different.
No, that's why you got to change personnel.
No, but I'm saying back then you was able to hand check.
Right. So you just change personnel a little bit.
They'd be good, but they're not going to win.
But if you took the Detroit Pistons, Isaiah would still be Isaiah without question. But Rick Mahorn couldn't guard Draymond Green in this era. He couldn't guard him in this era.
But we're not comparing them to this era. We're talking about the Chicago.
But you can't take that team because they're constructed under the rules that are here. So they're saying, okay, under these rules, can you bring those teams here?
Listen, and people even when you try to make a fair, honest comparison, people think you're hating. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper would be better today. They would be better players today, in my opinion. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, they would be better. There's no hand checking Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc.
I'm just saying,
who would win?
So I get what Kenny was trying to say. He was saying if you're playing in this era, a power forward like Rick Mahorn would struggle with a power forward like Draymond Green, which might be true. But he said that the issues with the Golden State Warriors playing in the handshake era, all they had to do was change their big man. So he used the liberty to make an adjustment for the Warriors but he didn't use that same liberty to make an adjustment for the Detroit Pistons with their lineups, right? So that was already a argument that was a little disingenuous and unfair. Now, I kind of agree with what Barkley was saying when he was saying, if you take that Bulls team that won 72 games and put them in this era, they're exponentially better. Ron Harper, Jordan, Pippen, Kukoc would all be unguardable in this era without the hand check, without the physical play and all that stuff, right? So he's saying, look, it's not gonna be good either way, because if you take Golden State and put them in that era, and you got 6'6" all the way across the board, pretty much, and 1 7-footer, and both of those 6'6" guards can guard Clay. They might have, it might be a little struggle with Steph, but if they can put their hands on them and hand check them, then maybe not. I mean, yeah, we seen guards like Rod Strickland, Marbury, Iverson do their thing on Jordan when he was 35 plus and stuff like that, and his feet wasn't moving as fast as they used to. Yeah, those little quick guards used to give him problems. So I can imagine Steph Curry giving Jordan problems, but so you would just probably have to put Jordan on Clay, which he would have to chase him around screens, which I don't think he liked that either. But as far as Steph with the ball, Ron Harper, I give him that matchup. But running Clay and Steph off screens, that might be their best bet. They got to figure that out. But they can switch all of that though. They can switch everything. Like, so even they got to line up like a modern day, because if they start 6'6" across the board with the 7-footer Luke Longley, that's 90s play. But if they take Luke Longley out and start Kukoc, right, and Rodman to guard the centers, Kukoc can play natural power forward, and he's a stretch power forward at that. They were more built for this era than what you think, right? I mean, when you look at the Clippers, they kind of got the same dynamic with Paul George and Kawhi. That's like the Jordan Pippen, and then 6'6" Ron Harper is kind of like a Westbrook without his athleticism, right? They don't have a Harden, but Tony Kukoc, I mean, it's very similar, very similar. But no, I get a nod to the 90s team. I get a nod to the Bulls. As far as winning that head-to-head in a hypothetical, but also as far as on paper being a better team, I give it to the Bulls, because when you look at it, they did the work in the regular season, they did the work in the playoffs, they stood that test of time and that gauntlet, and they went through that grind in the playoffs, and the Warriors fell short. So on that regard, on paper, you had to give it to the Bulls, and then when you start looking at the roster, I'm giving it to the Bulls again. So that's my thoughts on it, man. I hope that kind of helps out with all the debate between who's the better team, the Bulls or the Warriors, and who will win and all that stuff, man. But it's a whole nother conversation if you talk about that team the next year with Kevin Durant. That's a whole different ball game now. So you got to kind of approach it a little bit different. But that's a whole nother conversation. But no, that's the show. That's what I wanted to give y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed that, man. If you stayed all the way to the end, hit the subscribe button. If you're not already subscribed, hit the thumbs up for sure. Leave a comment, share as well, and go to Underdog Fantasy and use the promo code ManDownSports. Don't forget, become a member for the channel. You can be at the pro level, you can be at the Hall of Fame level. Either way, it's going to help, and we'll put the money to good use. And you're going to continue to get content like this. And yeah. Tell everybody about the channel, man. We'll catch you on the next episode. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy sports. I want to tell you about the easiest way to get in on some NBA action with Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game. Just find your favorite player, or any player for that matter, pick higher or lower on that player's stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in one night. Pick between 2 or 5 players to fill your pick'em entry. Get every pick right, and you can net yourself some serious cash. Use the promo code ManDownSports, and you can get your deposit doubled up to $100. You got to check on the map to make sure your state is eligible to play Underdog Fantasy. But as soon as you do, and if your state is, go ahead and download Underdogs Fantasy's app. Use the promo code ManDownSports, and you can, like I said, you can get that $100 match on your first deposit. And I would want to thank Underdog Fantasy